Hi everyone, my name is Itimeleng. I'm the founder of We Mentor Students. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be putting together a series of conversations with some of my friends, and the idea is to basically encourage young people to think differently about their careers, to think differently about their future, and if they can, prepare for the future as best as they can. We'll also put together a number of resources to help them with the thinking of the future and thinking of the different skill sets that may be required in the future and how to go about doing so. We also like to offer mentoring services for those students that are keen. So if you're interested, hit us up on our website. You can check more information there, or you could go to social media, different platforms. We are there, and send us a comment. But you can also email us on info@wementorstudents.co.za, and we'd like to hear from you, and we can offer you some of these services that I've spoken about. Thank you, guys. All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us. I'm with Mr. Matsweni Tladi, also known as Mesh. Mesh, how are you doing this evening?
I know, man. I'm doing good. Can't complain. It's a wonderful Sunday. Nothing much has happened since it's lockdown, but I'm surviving, man. I'm doing good. What about you?
I'm doing good, man. I also can't complain. And thank you very much for sacrificing one of your late evenings to join us and to chat about your career.
Sure, sure.
Cool. So I wanted to check with you. I think, firstly, maybe tell us who's Mesh, where you from, things like that.
Yeah, cool. As you said, Mesh, which is actually my nickname, my real name, as you mentioned earlier on, is actually Mashweni, surname Kadi. I'm originally from Limpopo, from a town called Pulukwani. As I would say, I'm rounding it off to the nearest town, but I'm actually from a township just on the outskirts of Polokwane called Seshego. That's where I was born and bred, and yeah, most of my childhood I spent in Seshego. Yeah, just till I was just till I matriculated. That's when I moved to Gauteng, and
Okay.
it's been about 8 years now.
It's been about 8 years
Yeah,
since you came to Gauteng.
yeah.
Oh, okay. And where do you live in Gauteng?
I mean, I'm based in Midrand currently, and yeah, that's it.
Okay. So tell us, when you finished matric, what did you do? What happened after your matric?
So after matric, I went to university in Midrand. It was an institute called Midrand Graduate Institute. I think now it's known as Pearson Institute of Higher Education. And yeah, I went there to study BCom Marketing Management, and from I think from 2012, yeah, which I finished in 2015. And yeah, that's when I actually should I explain more what happened after that or
Yeah, no, go for it. Go
yeah.
for it.
So then that's where I started actually part of my career. I then worked part time in ministry, still in Midrand, and I think I worked for about 3 years in ministry,
Sure.
and then I decided to also study further, but this time I branched out into education, where I did my postgraduate certificate in education, which was a 1 year course. And I did that. I finished it also in Midrand, and basically now I'm in the education sector.
Okay, fantastic. So, and you'd say, how long have you been in the education sector?
Now I'm going into my third year, so it's been 2 years and a couple of months now.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
specifically, what do you do in the education sector?
So I'm a teacher in the specifically in the primary education sector, and I'm a teacher at one of the schools here in Midrand, which is actually a school closely related to the church I was working at when I was still doing ministry. And I'm currently teaching 4 subjects: EMS, which is economic and management sciences, mathematics, robotics, and computer skills, which now sometimes they refer to as IT.
Awesome. Okay. And it's quite an interesting transition. I mean, from marketing management to becoming an educator with ministry in the middle.
Yeah.
How did you make the shift? Why did you make the shift?
Why did I make the shift?
Yes, from marketing into being an educator.
So yeah, when I was in Matric, I wanted to be a marketing manager or something in advertising. But then when I decided to join the church to do ministry, which was an apprenticeship, I became a Sunday school teacher at the church. And as I was teaching on Sundays, I just developed a love for teaching. And that's where I got the idea of maybe doing a PGCE so that I can become an educator and test how the waters seem like on the education sector.
Mm.
And here I am loving it. It has been an amazing 2 years and a couple of months now.
Awesome. And then what would have been some of the challenges that you've experienced in being a teacher and educating, as you said?
Yeah, so the education sector is quite a different sector. Can be discouraging if you're not prepared and you don't have the heart for it. I think it's one of those sectors where they say it's not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
And maybe just to name or rather to state a couple of challenges that we face in the education sector.
Yeah.
I think the first one would be as you all know, there's low salaries. I think it's one of the sectors where people actually get low pays, and often it's not satisfying. And and there's also often you find posts that are requiring very experienced people.
Mm.
But I think it's often just a picture. They can actually accept you even if you don't have high experience. But I think the advertising is just daunting because you just feel discouraged and think maybe I'm not that qualified for that post. And often it's one of those sectors, it's hard for young people to integrate due to the fact that it's one of those sectors that has a lot of elderly people.
Mm.
And I feel like I'm one of the youngest people at my workplace. I work with people who are old enough to be my parents, if I could say that. And it's quite difficult to integrate because I can't just integrate with them at a level where I can actually call them colleagues in a friendly manner or in a way that seems like there's a friendship. It's often like uh, colleague, but at a parent level kind of relationship.
Okay.
And so there's also challenges such as stereotyping. I think a lot of people actually think the primary sector specifically is one of those sectors that is actually designed for women. And I
Mm.
think it's one thing we need to redefine, because I think learners actually need more male teachers, more role model with integrity, of course. And amongst other challenges, we also have those that are actually found really inside the job itself, which is often like lack of resources and digital divide. Such factors, they're very visible in the education sector, and stuff such as discipline. And I think as of last year, if not the past 2 years, we have seen an eruption of ill-disciplined learners, where there were fights between learners and teachers. And I think that's quite discouraging for people to get into this type of sector.
Yeah.
So those are basically some of the few challenges that I could state out.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about real issues. Firstly, the issue of salary, it's a case of survival. For young people, it's always, I need to survive, I need to make money. And
Mm.
lately, they want to turn up as well, which is quite interesting. And also, you've spoken about quite interesting things of age differentiation. I mean, we're seeing millennials coming into the workplace. In your workplace as well, it's the same. You're the young person joining elderly people, and surely there's challenges around that as well. So how
Mm.
do you overcome some of these challenges? I mean, what do you do to get over some of these challenges?
So I think to best start that, you want to ask yourself, what is your purpose, and why do you want to be in a specific field? and I would say that I saw a need for a role model for young kids, and especially a young guy like me. And so I looked at the specific school that I worked at as well. There is a great need for male role models, and I thought to myself I could be a good role model for them. I'm not perfect, but I thought I could be a good role model, and also stuff such as I saw there's a gap in the education sector, and I mean that gap includes a lot of stuff. So stuff such as how the education sector, especially in South Africa, and even with the school that I work at, it's one of those sectors that actually cater for mainstream children. But I thought to myself, with the skills that I have, I can actually make a difference, and it's something that I think I would actually enjoy doing. So I looked above those challenges, and I decided I can actually go into this sector.
Yeah, and earlier on you spoke about the passion that you developed while you're in ministry for little ones, and basically you've been talking about being a role model and a good male figure that kind of gives guidance to the young people as well, which is quite exciting. I mean, it's about chasing your passion and transferring some of that passion to the young folks. I actually wanted you to talk a little bit about the technology stuff that you do. I mean, I saw a couple of days ago you were posting things on WhatsApp
Yeah.
in terms of what you're doing from a technology perspective in preparation for schools resuming again.
Yeah, so let me just start where the passion started. So actually, there's an organization that actually provides us with smart boards at our school,
Mm.
and this organization was actually running a workshop on educational technology. So I decided to take it off from work, and I obviously asked my bosses, and I said, "May I please attend this workshop and see what it's all about?"
Mm.
And in fact, the boss were actually thinking that they should send someone, but because I went there willingly, they just said, "I no, you go." So I went to attend this workshop basically, and I attended this robotics. It was actually a STEM education class, and but they were more focused on robotics. So, and from then on, I was so fascinated by this, and I was like, you know what? Actually, schools are starting to go this way. This is a channel maybe we should be thinking about as a school. So I actually went to my bosses and said, listen, I think we must start looking at getting robotics while it's still new in the market. And they actually said, you know what, since you came up with this initiative, take it, start it. And then we started our robotics classes as of this year, and yeah, so we focus on so robotics is actually a type of engineering where we deal in designing robots, programming of robots, modifying of robots, stuff like that. So yeah, and it has been running successfully for the past months before the disruption of COVID-19 and lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's quite exciting. So now you've introduced it as part of the curricula, and the kids can now learn some new skills over and above what you've been teaching.
Indeed, indeed. And so the good thing about it is that robotics is not just a subject on its own. Like it helps learners gain certain skills that are actually helpful for other subjects. And just to name a few, problem solving and teamwork. And I'll just give an example of how we actually pose a lesson in robotics. So we solve it in a way that learners have to come with specific solutions. So first of all, we pose a problem question, and we state out that there's a problem that we need to fix. And learners using all those robotics kits, they need to solve the solution. And it's one of those skills where you can say, actually, people need even in business, people need in science, because you need people who are strategical thinkers, people who are analytic, people who can solve problems. And again, because all activities are done as a group or in sort of a pairs and all that, so it also gives them or rather teaches them skills of working with one another, which is one of the skills I think that it's required in the corporate world as well. So, which is why I think it was a good way to go, rather than just taking a subject but you don't know where it fits inside the school curriculum and the broader general education sector.
Sure. And what excites me the most about what you're saying is it's introducing new skill sets that you and I traditionally did not go through when we were in I mean, even in varsity, I guess, at that time.
Yeah,
What's interesting is that kids now at high school are able to get those teamwork skills, as you said, problem solving skills, which are different to the way how we used to think, and now are useful for them to be able to get through and run their lives differently as well, which better positions them for new careers, I guess. Which
yeah,
is,
yeah. So, and it was also a good thing to introduce because I looked at also the job market on how it's dissolving.
yeah,
And I mean, so we always hear people saying jobs are actually dissolving. By the time it's 10 years from now, my job won't be there and all that. And here's the thing, we're going into the fourth industrial revolution. The way we do work and the way we live is going to be influenced by artificial intelligence and digitalism and robots, basically. So I wanted to make our kids think differently rather than just complaining and saying we won't have jobs. Why are we still learning? We won't have jobs. I rather thought, let me make them see a different angle that, yes, there may be this type of jobs dissolving, but there's another angle. Why not be designers of those things that are taking away jobs? Why don't we be repairers or consultants for those stuff? So maybe it's time our kids become part of the generation that designs robots, that repairs robots, that are involved in artificial intelligence and like intensively involved in the fourth industrial revolution, so that by the time it's fully operational, they're not left behind and feel like what they learned was useless in school. So rather teach them something that's important now.
I think you shifted nicely into where we want to chat next, around some advice you want to give young people. And I think, I mean, being an educator, a lot of young people will look up to you and say, "You are molding my future. You are molding my thinking. You are helping me see the world differently." And what advice would you give young people who are considering to shift careers, or even maybe how do you keep yourself abreast with what's happening in the world now?
Yeah, so I'd have I'd put people into groups right now so that I advise both groups. So I think there are those who probably have jobs and those who don't have jobs. And if it's the case where you don't have a job and you're probably thinking of shifting, let's say maybe you even have a qualification in another field and you're considering going into education, I think I would advise you to think about it, and this is one of the reasons I would say so. Because first of all, you probably have accumulated a lot of information in the particular sector which you studied before. Let's say, for instance, you studied economics,
Yeah.
and that makes you like you have a lot of content about economics. Maybe it's time you bring it into the education sector and teach that. And another advice I would also give those guys is that don't be scared to start from the bottom. Often I know it's discouraging where like you have to start as a junior teacher, an intern teacher. I don't think it's a bad start. Often it could be a good start, and we often need those basics to take us further. So if it requires you to apply for a job where it allows you to penetrate into the market or sector you want to be in, go for it. And those basics might come in handy in the future. And again, if it requires you to study further or learn skills that will help you get the job that you actually want, go for it as well. And I use that I'm trying to use that safely and not to make it seem like studying for a degree is a need where everyone should go in it. And I don't want to put it in a way that without a degree you might seem useless. But I say that if it requires you to study further or learn a new skill, whether through university or not,
Yeah.
but go for it. And for those guys with jobs as well, don't be discouraged if you're still at the lower level as well. Just keep on working on your skills as well. Keep sharpening your skills and be a team player in your workplace as well. So I'll just give a bit of a background of how I'm achieving that, or I'm trying to be a team player in my workplace.
Yeah.
So from my previous jobs, I've always made sure that I learn something, whether be it my job or school or anything that I was involved in. I always tried to make sure that I learn a skill,
Yeah.
and all those skills they've helped me in my current job. So I'll give you an example. While I was in ministry, I actually learned a lot about doing sound, like in terms of plugging sound for the church services. And guess what? Schools have concerts, schools have parents' meeting. Sound is needed, and part of my responsibilities is to handle sound. And again, from my brother who actually studied IT, I learned a little bit of computers. I mean, basic stuff like installing softwares, installing different stuff, and just managing a little bit of the computer there and there. And I think those basic skills have helped me to be the go-to guy at school. I actually handle the IT system at school. I'm the go-to guy, the first guy to be approached whenever there's a problem with the IT system at school. And yeah, so I've made myself a valuable player in that kind. So I've actually created bargaining power for myself,
Yeah.
in a sense, if I can put it that way. And it has made me look good in the eyes of my bosses. And I think also, lastly, for those guys who are in jobs as well, build relationships with people. We learn from one another, and like build proper relationships, respectful relationships with your colleagues and bosses. I always tell my colleagues that you need to build the right confidence to approach your bosses respectfully.
Yeah.
Because often you find that, especially, I don't know if it happens with all kinds of races, but I've noticed it with a lot of our black people, where it seems like if our bosses are a different race, we are scared to approach them and ask them for advice, ask them for to take an opportunity, and often we miss out on learning and acquiring knowledge or even better opportunities
Yeah.
because we couldn't approach our bosses. And it's an easy thing. It's just a matter of just going to them and saying, I need help with one, two, three. How can I get it done? I've never done it before. Be honest and learn from them. Learn from your other colleagues as well. Even if they're younger or older than you, learn from them. They have a lot to teach. And I think in that regard, I also have a maths teacher who's actually very older than me. And I mean, he's like one of the best maths teachers I've ever seen. And I sometimes have to go to him and say, give me ideas to explain this topic. And then he helps out. He's like, oh, to better deal with this topic, don't teach it like you're in varsity. Teach it like you're a child. Think of a child. I mean, he gives me great ideas. And I think that has been quite helpful in my teaching career.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say people must build relationships, work along with their colleagues as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. I think I found so much value in the conversation,
Yeah.
learning a little bit more about yourself, but mostly, I mean, about the education sector and understanding that being an educator is such an influential career. It helps young people know where to go. It helps them understand the different skill sets that are out there in the market that they can pursue. You are also teaching them how to acquire some of those skill sets as well, which is quite useful and helpful. And most importantly, I mean, we saw your transition in your career from what was like an obvious decision to go for a marketing role. You shifted and went for something that you're a little bit more passionate about, that makes you wake up in the morning, that makes you want to do it every day.
Yeah.
You're doing it with all passion that you have, which is fun. And I see you also saying you're acquiring new skills yourself.
Yeah.
You're doing IT, you're doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things just to make yourself relevant. And I guess that's the message I'm taking, is that you are saying go out there and continue making yourself relevant. Don't be stale and focus on one simple role, one simple function. Keep adding your skill sets, keep advancing yourself. It helps you pivot your career into
Indeed.
different places you want to go. And maybe any final thoughts, some couple of ways you want to share as well?
Yeah, so maybe I'll just say each and every person, they should ask themselves like what type of change they wanna bring, and what is their motivation into going into this particular career path or particular sector. And so, I mean, yes, there are other motivational factors such as money and all that, but let it not be just one thing that motivates you, such
Mm.
as money, because you could actually go into a job because of its the payout where there's a high salary, but eventually find yourself miserable to an extent where you're actually not even performing the job to your best of abilities, or you're not even being productive.
Yeah.
You probably wanna consider a lot of factors more than just it being money. How happy I am, how good am I with that particular job, and stuff like that. And as I said, if there's a lack, sharpen your skills as well. Like make your as you've been saying as well, make yourself valuable, and make sure that you stay focused. And I mean, what motivated me into being in this career is that I also wanted to bring change, and I also wanted to bring about equality. I wanted to advocate for equality, and I looked at our education sector, and I thought there's such a great divide between our schools. There are those schools that are actually very rich in a sense that they're well invested in, and these learners get everything from be it swimming, karate, robotics, all the music, and all those extra curriculums. And then you just have this one school that's less invested in, and it just has like your normal mainstream subjects, your NS, technology, life science. And I mean, they're important subjects, but I thought if I go to any school, I must get there and put a footprint and just make sure that there's a change. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna leave that workplace as I found it. I'm gonna bring some new stuff, and it's some new stuff that are gonna make change in the learners. And yeah, that's why I decided to go into that sector. So those are my final thoughts. Like, be a valuable player, be committed, be a man of integrity or woman of integrity.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I want to thank you, firstly, for all the hard work that you're doing for the young people in
Pleasure.
Tembisa. Thank you for that. I mean, we don't often say thank you to our teachers. I'm just listening to you. You reminded me of half the things my teachers used to say to me when I was and I'm thinking, sure, if I listened a little bit more carefully, maybe things would have turned out differently for me. And I think it's an important thing to note. The other important note that you made is the industry has a big stereotype. It's almost uh, poised to be an industry for females, and here are male players who are active in the industry, who are making a difference in the industry, equally like females have been over the years. And I
Mm,
think it's a call upon males to say we need more male role models that can help within the education sector, that can bring the value that you talk about, but can also
mm,
bring the change that you talk about. And it becomes a joint venture with some of the females that have been doing this for many, many years.
mm,
Because if I think of myself, I think of a lot of female teachers that were teaching me. And you're right, very seldom we think of male teachers that
mm.
have had a huge impact in our lives. And we need those role models.
Indeed.
Guidance, we need people who can show us from a male perspective how things work and how do we think differently. But most importantly, I guess society is also excited to hear from you.
Yeah.
And I believe it's a wonderful opportunity just for young people to be reminded of the value of educators in our lives, but most importantly, the value of developing yourself and increasing yourself. And this is the point of the series. It's for us to try fill the gap and identify some of the unsung heroes like yourself, and raise your voice, raise some of the concerns that you've raised, and hopefully there'll be people that can innovate around the challenges as well. And there could be some other people that close the gap that you spoke about earlier as well, which is quite
Mm.
exciting. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a great evening further.
Thank you, Timilein. Thank you for the time as well.
Awesome. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. See you again next Tuesday. Thank you, everyone. Bye.